We were shipped into the place. I personally went in, and we shall ever be grateful to our Navy, the destroyers and those ships that supported and kept us alive, because without the Navy, we would not have seen out the distance.
10 o'clock at night we got into Tobruk, and all we did was just, the trucks pulled up and we jumped off, and all we did was just sort of dug a little depression in the ground and laid a ground sheet on the ground and laid on that until the morning, and woke up in the morning and were half buried in sand. There'd been a storm through the night. And the way the sand drifts over there, it just travels. And we're just pushing the sand away like that to get up in the morning.
One bottle of water for all purposes. No trees, and you're just out in the bare sunlight. Scrubby stuff, a bit like sort of salt bush around the area. It can get cold at night. It can be 45 degrees, you know, or more. Sometimes the sandstorms come up and they just shut down the book for 2 or 3 days at a time, or a couple of days anyhow. Just like pulling the blind down from sky to end, and the vicious sort of things come up out of the desert.
Well, the water used to be brought up in petrol drums that were emptied that day or whatever, and the water used to taste like bloody petrol. And that's all we used to have to drink and do a bit of a wash and a shave and that. Oh, it was shocking.
You put about that much water in, do your teeth, then shave, and your hands and face, and that for 3 weeks. And then when you came off the red line, you get back to nick down the blue line, you nick down to the beach and have a wash up. For night time, the truck would come up with the dinner. And these are our Dixies. You'd use that for your bully beef stew, and that one for prunes and rice. That was its sweets. And 2 buckets of water, one's supposed to be hot, one's cold, and no tea towel. That's about the size of a tin of bully beef. And we were sharing 3 of that between 3 men for lunch. For a long time. The Russians were pretty scared.
Dealing with disease and fleas, you couldn't imagine the fleas would gather in multiples to like a tin atom, and flies. That caused an awful lot of problems. Desert sores and hard rations all the time. I think old Bill Angliss wouldn't have been too proud of his bully beef out of the tins when we turned the key in them, just like the sardine tin or the package that they were in. And the hot fat just run down the outside, and you had that for breakfast, dinner and tea, and hard rations a lot of the time. And water, that was precious.
The English ships were from the Indian squadron. They used to come up and they used to come in and they would park. There'd be 2 or 3 and they'd come in and they'd park out in the stream. And I can remember this particular time we went out and they had boxes of oranges, which we'd never seen, you know. And a couple of officers said, "Hello, what are you fellas doing here?" And as it happened, we had our white and blue scarves on. They said, "Oh, dispatch riders, okay, fellas, keep going." But we had this box of oranges in the car, pinching stuff. But when we got back to the camp, we had this box of oranges. When we left it in the camp, you could smell them for miles. They lasted about 2 ups. You know, you couldn't keep them and hide them. Everybody smelled them. Yeah.
The fig tree was a tree that was over a coral sort of foundation over the big hole underneath it. And it was used for all sorts of things, casualty clearing station for the perimeter, of course, for a lot of injured and so casualties. And a headquarters, all sorts of things over its time. The 3 weeks that were supposed to be there lasted really for 242 days, I think, which was 8 months. And
I suppose the most scary part was the shelling at night. The mortars and shells, you know, a lot flying over, and other ones that you just heard whip bang, and you know that was pretty close. And then sometimes you'd hear a thud, and one would hit the ground, didn't go off.
After you've been there a few years, you get to the stage where it doesn't worry you, because you reckon if you're going to get hit, you're going to get hit. Sort of thing. But in the first place, yes, you used to be worried about it and looking for a place to hide, and that went right on through there, through Alamein, you know.
What the Germans did, they had Alsatian dogs on top of this big tunnel where the gun was. And these dogs would give them a signal that there was any people around. And that's how we couldn't get it. The Navy couldn't get it because it used to run out on rails out from the side of the cliff. And he was a bloody nuisance, this gun, anyway. But they couldn't get it. But it might be still there today, I wouldn't know. But anyway.
And I could smell all the bullets going over my head. That's what you could smell them. I was right up against their dugout, and they poured it out. When they stopped firing, I had one grenade, and I had a Tommy gun with 50 rounds in one magazine, and 20 in another. You see, so when they stopped firing, I poured 50 rounds into the dugout where they were, and threw a grenade in on top of them, and they went real quiet. and I said, come on, let's go, while they were thinking about it. And so I turned up, and then the next thing, my mate turned up, Bert Cox from Nathalia. He come up and he said, hello. He said, they got you at last, have they? And I'd had a bullet in the bum, you see.
The hurly-burly of action, of course, the artillery, apart from what they call counter-battery fire, your enemy is on you all the time with sound ranging and flash spotting equipment. They can pinpoint you pretty smartly, you know. But you didn't have the chance of shifting to another position sometimes to give you a bit of a temporary break, as you can in other territories. That was a bit hard to take. And our duty, of which I always consider the infantry the backbone of the army, in my book. Our job was to give them every support we possibly could, and you just stand to no matter what. And the Stukas gave us a fair sort of attention, because they used the Stuka being a pretty accurate sort of thing that comes down, if you imagine, and they scream and they open every door or whatever apparatus they got, and they're screaming all the time. They come near and watch the bomb come out of under the plane and so forth, and they're aiming straight at you like that, and then they pull away.
I was on guard on a water hole, which is not used, and there was an ack post not far away. And the Stukas used to come out of the sun at an angle, and they pounded this ack regiment. There's sandbags and guns, bodies everywhere. My word, but there was an old plane that didn't make it, but that pilot wouldn't know, and they used to go around and back to base. They were We're very well trained.
Anyhow, we were sitting there, and these 5 Stukas came over. And the first thing we knew, they were coming screaming down at this tent that we were sitting in. And outside we had holes dug, and that's right, up in the hill area there. It was that hard that if you had a shovel, it was all right, but if you didn't, you couldn't dig because it was too hard. And they dug little slit trenches about this deep, you know, thinking, oh, that's all right. So we built it along like that, and then across like this. See, one could lie there and one could lie across here, sort of thing. You know, when I ran outside, there was blokes beat me out, and there was blokes filled up the trenches all round. So I dived in on top of one of the other blokes, and I was still a bit above the floor. And as these bombs were coming down, you could hear this. They had the sirens on them, you know. They used to put the sirens on them, and when they let the bomb go, they just 5 seconds, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bang, you got it, you know.
Another day earlier, Jack and I decided we'd go for a walk, and we come to this big wadi. You know, wadi's a dry riverbed. And we were walking along this, and we heard a plane behind us, and looked round, and there's a Stuka dive bomber. He was flying very low under the radar, and next thing you know, there's bullets around us, and Jack and I, we headed for the bank. There was no trees or anything, there were rocks and you could shelter on it, but we broke the stall gift record getting to the bank, I tell you. I thought he might come back, but he didn't. We jumped out and bang bang after him, but
I reflect on these things as in your more sombre moments, you have a time to reflect on it. And as you grow older, well, of course, you never really forget.
we're something to be proud of, I suppose.
But I was never frightened, is a funny thing. Never ever frightened. No matter how tough it was, there was always a way out somehow or other.
The Siege of Tobruk was the longest siege that any British company or any British army had ever experienced, and I feel real privileged to be a rat of Tobruk. And I've always said that and always feel that way. And until my dying days, actually.